articulate outside a car. You never know. Maybe I only do that in a car. But I am loquacious, and I talk easily. And well, I don't know. It's an honor and a privilege to be here and to be the recipient of this commission. I love it. And it really, the source of it, of course, is my good friends, Gerald Busby and Robert Nunley, whom I've known for many, many, many years. And I've been coming up here, and they got to know my music and have been supporters of it. And it's through them that they began to engineer this, and through Peg and all the channels they go, which is really what I wanted to tell you about writing this film score. And actually every major event in my life has come through the most unexpected and gratuitous channels. To begin, I would say even before this, when my very first commission, when I started writing music, I was a cook, and I was hired to cook a dinner for somebody who was entertaining Virgil Thompson. And it was a young composer, a friend of mine. This was 1969, moved into West Bend, and he was very, very eager to impress Virgil. He knew all of Virgil's music. He knew all of Virgil's music criticism, which is really formidable. He worked for the Herald Tribune, and he was a make or break kind of critic. His review could get you. Anyway, Virgil came, and my friend talked up Virgil and how much he knew about him. Dun, 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 dun. Virgil's attention all was on the plate. He said, "Who made this food? This isn't kiddie stuff," he said. And so I was brought out of the kitchen, and Virgil and I became friends. I was working as a college textbook publisher, traveling salesman, not publisher. And I had a car, and Virgil wanted somebody to drive him around, so we became friends. We drove out to Montauk to see Edward Albee. We drove to Hampton to see friends. And I just started writing music, and I said, "Virgil, I've written a few pieces. Would you listen to them?" He says, "No, not until I taste more of your food and see if you can put things together and turn them into something else." So I said, "Okay." It was a way of getting me to cook, as well as being a kind of a Zen approach to it. So we began to cook together. And then I began to teach piano. It turned out to kind of children of the rich and famous. I taught Leonard Bernstein's youngest daughter, Nina, and Adolph Green, Phyllis Newman's children. And through them, I began to go to concerts and meet people. I met Nureyev and went to this was in the early 70s, mid-70s. He was kind of at the peak of his career. Went backstage and met him and met his companion, Wallace Potts, who knew Paul Taylor. I gave a tape to Wallace Potts, who liked my music. I only written a few pieces, and Paul Taylor called me up about 2 mornings later and said, "This is Paul. I heard your music and I like it." He said, "Would you like to come to Lake Placid this summer?" I said, "Yes, I would. I'd love to come to Lake Placid." So I went. This is kind of the way things happen. With Robert Altman, I had a friend who was a movie publicist, a unit publicist, you would call. This is a person who's hired when a film is about to open, maybe a couple of months beforehand, writes all the press releases, contacts, arranges the screenings, does all the work. And my friend, the publicist, knew Robert Altman's publicist. Robert Altman was making 3 movies a year in those days. He would work for 3 months, take a month off, work for 3 months, and he would shoot them. He produced and directed them, and made them all for less than $3 million, which is now, as you know, is nothing. My friend sent a tape to his publicist, Mike Kaplan. Mike it was cassettes, little cassette tapes in those days. This is 1976. And with one afternoon, and with 2 other composers' tapes that Robert Altman was going to listen to. Excuse me. He would do this. He had a studio in Westwood, just near UCLA, and he would gather all the people who were editing and working with him. His staff would all come for drinks and whatever, and his cronies. Remember that afternoon, a friend told me Lily Tomlin dropped by, Peter Boyle, and Elliot Gould, who was Altman was doing some films with him, all came by, and at one point Altman said, "I want you to hear some music," and that's all he said, and the room quieted down, and the engineer put on each of our tapes in succession, and Altman went off to one side. My friend, the costume designer, Alan Heifel, told me this, with a stopwatch, and he timed from the beginning of when each piece was started, how long it took before anybody spoke. No matter what they said, even if they said, "This is great," or "Wow," they'd stop listening because they were talking. Another very Zen kind of thing. And the person who had the longest period of silence won, and it was I. And that's how I got the job. And it's not, I can't take credit for it. It's an astonishing thing just how these things go. When I first started, certainly out of Yale and music school and so forth, thought, well, now I just have to meet the right people, and I have to make a resume and get all the channels that we think are going to work for us. It isn't so. Somebody's chauffeur or somebody says, "Look, you ought to listen to that," or it's about getting their attention. And I'll finish what I have to say by telling you about the attention that Altman, how he created this space. I've known and worked with or around or for, I would say, 5 bona fide geniuses. And of them all, Altman was the only one who, in the first place, wasn't a sadist. Most of them in power, particularly Martha Graham, they could not resist reaching out and pinching you every now and then just to make you jump because they know you won't run away. But Altman did not do that. Altman he created this atmosphere in which you suddenly felt like you had permission to be yourself. And you thought, wow. I mean, it's like he turned the child in you. It's like he honed in on that. And he loved it, and he saw it, and he supported it. So it was okay to play. You were safe. You were happy. It was like, "Daddy." I knew you were there somewhere. And then, that was the first thought. The second thought was, why was I waiting for somebody to give me permission to do this? But he did it all with a minimum of words. He could somehow get exactly what he wanted from you without ever asking you for it. That's a perfect administrator. But he was charming. He was wonderful. He brought me out. He called me after hearing my music and met with me at Sam Cohen's office at ICM in New York, his agent, and said, "I like your music. Have you ever written a film score?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Have you orchestrated?" I said, "I've just written some chamber music and a few solo pieces." He says, "Have you conducted?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He says, "Well, can you?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, the job is yours." So I went to Hollywood, and more nights than I care to admit, I'd wake up sweating, thinking, when is he going to discover I don't know what I'm doing? But that was how I fell into this. And he channeled his energy through me, and I watched the thing. And he helped me. He got John Williams, who'd done a couple of scores before me, to come and to sort of guide. John Williams says, "Well, when you see water, write some music." And the main thing John Williams did was find me musicians, performers. I wrote a piece, sort of a chamber concerto for flute and 19 instruments, most string, no violins. It was this was about women, and so it was about stomachs, the viscera. It was about plumbing. So it's kind of about, as you see, it's about the growling of that creature in us. I didn't think anything like this. There was no planning, there was nothing, but watched over and over and over as they got the movie down from 3 or 4 hours to 2. And then they would select, each reel was 12 minutes long. And when a reel was finally set, then I could take a stopwatch, which we did in those days, and move viola and write the music. So I'm here as a result of a string of good luck and much good fortune, knowing my wonderful friends and Peg and Doug. I knew Doug way back too. We were friends, and their connection with Peg and Doug is a marvelous thing for me as well, because it's kind of a summing up of everything good that I feel about this part of the world. So thank you very much.